I'd always made an effort to keep things professional at work, but some people treat respect like it's optional. Daniel was definitely one of them. Tall, overly sure of himself, and wearing a grin that made it far too easy to forget he didn't understand boundaries. He moved through the office like it was his private kingdom. And apparently, in that kingdom, I was a problem. It started on a Monday morning. I was at my desk, sipping coffee and going over quarterly reports when I sensed someone standing behind me. A shadow stretched across my cubicle. "Hey," Daniel said, leaning against my desk with that smug expression. "You know, some of us don't have to grind like hamsters on wheels. Some of us just get respect naturally." I looked up calmly, one eyebrow raised. "Respect? From you?" He let out a low, confident laugh. "Yeah, I mean, come on. Everyone here knows I run the place. Maybe you should," he paused, letting his smugness settle in the air. "Learn your place." I stared straight at him, my grip tightened around my pen, but I refused to react. Daniel was trying to intimidate me, trying to prove he was the alpha. I'd dealt with men like him before, but his brand of confidence felt dangerous, especially because it involved my wife, Claire. Daniel wasn't just any co-worker. He was known for flirting with married women, for crossing lines with a kind of reckless boldness. And I'd seen him looking at Claire at last year's Christmas party, smirking the moment she laughed at something I never even heard. I decided right then I wasn't going to play along. I wouldn't yell or let him get to me, but I also wasn't going to sit back. Later that afternoon, he cornered me near the printer. "You know," he said casually, "guys like me get noticed. Maybe you show." Before he could finish, I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened a photo. One photo. Daniel standing a little too close to Claire at a work event. Innocent on the surface, except his face said everything. Smiling too wide, leaning too close, his hand somewhere it definitely shouldn't have been. I held the phone up. "Recognize this?" I asked quietly. Daniel froze. The smirk disappeared, replaced with something tight and forced. I didn't have to say a word. The picture did all the talking. His eyes darted between the phone and my face as he looked for some excuse, some way to twist it back in his favor. But there wasn't one. That single image exposed everything he tried so hard to hide behind confidence. "You think this matters?" he sputtered, trying to sound unfazed. "It's nothing, just a joke. A moment." I cut him off with a slow shake of my head. "A joke, Daniel? That's what you call that? Close enough to cross a line. Close enough to make my wife uncomfortable. Close enough for me to notice. That's not a joke. That's reality." He swallowed, face tightening, the so-called alpha slipping away with each second. I watched the transformation, the confidence draining, replaced by fear and calculation. In that moment, I realized something. One quiet move can topple an entire tower of arrogance. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and stepped a little closer, keeping steady eye contact. "Do yourself a favor. Keep your hands to yourself, your eyes to yourself, and your ego far away from my life." Daniel gave a stiff, reluctant nod, mumbling something about a misunderstanding. I didn't bother replying. I let the silence sit between us, heavy and unmoving. Later that evening, when I told Claire about it, she let out a soft laugh. "So you finally shut him down?" she asked, a blend of relief and amusement in her voice. I nodded. "Yeah, just one photo. That's all it took." She shook her head with a small smile. "Of course you handled it like that. Calm. Precise. Honestly, it's impressive." I shrugged, but inside something shifted. This wasn't just about Daniel. It was about boundaries, about the small games people play, assuming no one will call them out or hold them accountable. Claire reminded me why this mattered so much. Our marriage, our trust, none of that was ever going to be up for debate. And Daniel learned that the hard way. The swagger, the little power plays, the attempts to intimidate, they all fell apart the moment reality caught up with him. One photo, one undeniable truth. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like satisfaction. Not revenge, just balance restored. But things didn't end there. The next few days were filled with whispers in the office, exchanged glances, unspoken questions. I didn't feed any of it, but the shift was obvious. Daniel avoided me entirely. No eye contact in meetings, no passing remarks, no wandering near my desk. His usual snark vanished. The so-called alpha was gone, replaced with someone cautious, calculating, careful. And everyone sensed it. Co-workers who once tolerated his arrogance now watched him differently. Whatever hold he had over the place had loosened, and all without me lifting a finger. Claire and I, on the other hand, felt closer than ever. That one moment, that single image, reminded both of us why boundaries, honesty, and trust matter more than any game someone tried to play. She smiled at me more during work, small, knowing smiles that said I'd handled it without chaos or drama. Eventually, Daniel tried to make awkward small talk, like he was scrambling to regain some respect. I answered politely, calmly, making sure every word reminded him he didn't have power over me, not at my desk, not at home, not anywhere. The beauty of it was how simple it all was. No yelling, no threats, no scenes, just truth. And that truth did more damage to his ego than any confrontation ever could. Later at home, Claire leaned into me, laughing softly. "You didn't even raise your voice," she whispered. "You just handled it." "Sometimes," I said, "the strongest move isn't fighting. It's letting reality speak." And Daniel learned his lesson in the silence that followed. He stopped trying to be the alpha, stopped testing boundaries, and kept his distance from both me and Claire. That's when it hit me. Once boundaries are respected, they build more trust than any argument ever could. And seeing that shift in him confirmed something important. Calm, subtle action carries more weight than anger or theatrics ever will. In the end, one photo didn't just shut him down. It restored respect, strengthened loyalty, and proved something simple. Confidence without integrity always collapses. And honestly, that was the only victory I needed.